Hi, this is Valerie Abrahamian with Advocates for Angels, and tonight I wanted to talk to you about signing your IEP. So as I'm sure most of you know, this is IEP season. It's the month of May, which is the end of the school year, and that's wonderful IEP season. So we're all preparing for our child's annual IEP. You might be having a transition IEP because your child might be transitioning from grade school to middle school, or middle school to high school, or even preschool to grade school. So there's all sorts of IEPs that happen at the end of the school year. You might be a parent who has some concerns about your child's school year, and you called an IEP meeting. So there's just everyone's cramming in, calendaring IEPs right and left every day. I'm attending IEPs every day for my clients, and it's a very stressful time of year. But what I wanted to focus on tonight was signing your IEP. Did you know that you do not have to sign your child's IEP at the IEP meeting? So this is a very misinformed topic. Most parents think that they have to sign their IEP at their child's IEP meeting, right there on the spot at your meeting after the meeting's over. And this is simply not true. It's incorrect misinformation, even disinformation, actually. When you are completed with your IEP and they read the notes as fast as they can, or maybe they don't read the notes at all, and they shove the IEP in front of parents and they say, okay, go ahead and sign now, parents, we need to sign the IEP. And parents just blindly do what they say, do what they're told, and sign their IEP, even when they're not in agreement with the IEP, which is insane to me, because why would you sign the IEP if you are not in agreement with your IEP? So a lot of parents are told, but they told me I had to sign the IEP. They told me that if I didn't sign the IEP, my child might lose their services, or my child might be decreased of their special education program or services, or I'm at risk of losing something. And that's just simply not true. Your child's not going to lose anything. Now, what will happen is whatever they offered you that's new in the IEP that day isn't going to be put into effect until you sign your IEP. Hi, Erin. So, but that's okay. A couple days till you take home your IEP, you read your IEP in the comfort of your own home, where you're not stressed out, where you're not feeling pressured, where the whole IEP team isn't sitting around the table staring at you, waiting for you to sign your IEP. No, you need to take your IEP home and read it so you really understand it. You know that it's what you want to sign and you're in agreement with, and then you sign it and you take it back to your program specialist or your case carrier or your principal at the school site. So that's the proper way to sign it, taking it home. Don't ever make it a practice not to ever sign your IEP right there at your IEP meeting. It's not going to hurt to wait a couple days, okay? So let's talk about some options about what happens if you don't sign your IEP, and what are other ways you can sign your IEP. So first of all, let's talk about if you don't sign your IEP. So if you don't sign it, I kind of touched on that. What happens is your last IEP that you did sign remains in effect. So your child isn't going to lose their program, isn't going to lose their services, because all the services that you had before remain and continue to be implemented. All the goals, all the accommodations, everything that was in that last IEP that you signed continues to remain in effect until you sign the current IEP that you were offered that day at that IEP meeting. Okay, so that's what happens. Stay put. It's a legal term, goes into effect. Okay. So another option that you have is you would sign the IEP with exception. So that would be on the signature page on line 1B. So line 1A is, I agree to the IEP in full. I agree to everything in my IEP, 1A. 1B initial, it says, I agree to my IEP with exception, and then a little tiny line about this big, which you can't really fit much on. So if you can fit on that little tiny line what you're in disagreement with, then you write on that line, and then everything else that was included in that document will go into effect except for what you said you were in disagreement with. Okay, that's the option 1. Option 2 is, let me add to option 1 first. If what you want to say doesn't fit on that tiny little line, simply take another piece of paper and write 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, a paragraph even, on another piece of paper that will be attached to the IEP because you couldn't fit it on the little line, and you're still signing with exception on line 1B. Okay, now we go to option 2. Option 2 is that you write what's called a partial agreement. So a partial agreement is a little bit more legal or formal, but it's very easy. All parents can do it. This is what I do most of the time because there's always something that parents are in disagreement with. That's why they hire me, right? Because we're resolving things, disagreements, dissents that the parent has, but we still want things that they offered to move forward. So what a partial agreement is it's more of a formal letter that you would write. So you want to write it in a formal manner as a letter. And at the top, you're going to write partial agreement, and you're going to say, I agree for all portions of my child name IEP to move forward and be implemented with exception of, and then issue number 1, you write what you're in dissent. Issue number 2, write what you're in disagreement. Issue number 3, what you're in disagreement, however many issues you have. So then you have a lot more room. It's a formal letter. You could disagree with however many issues you have, and that's taken care of. It's very clearly what you're in disagreement of, but yet the rest of what they offered in that document will move forward. That's a partial agreement, okay? Which is a great way, a great option to sign your IEP, especially if you're having a lot of issues, okay? And then the district will need to resolve those things with you. They'll have to call another IEP meeting and discuss those things with you, come to some kind of a compromise, and try to resolve those problems. Okay, so that would be option number 2. Option number 3 is that you don't sign your IEP at all. Now, when would that be appropriate? That would be appropriate when, it's typically wouldn't be appropriate if it was an annual, because an annual is is the biggest IEP other than the triannual, where they're going to change goals. They could add services, change services, whatever. So there's going to be a lot of stuff that you would want implemented. When you wouldn't sign would be is if you're really in complete dispute and you're ready to even go to litigation, and you're just not happy at all, and you're having a really hard time, and you have a very problematic IEP at that time. You wouldn't sign because you want to make a statement. You want to say, look, we're going to go to a higher level of advocacy. I need to meet with the director, and you're not going to sign. Another appropriate time not to sign would be if it was something maybe that the district called that they had to follow up on something, or they were adding data collection to something, or just something that you really don't really care about implementing, but there's something that you're really in disagreement with, and you want to make a real strong statement. So not signing is making a strong statement that you're in disagreement and you're not going to sign. It means you're not in agreement at all, and nothing's going to be changed or implemented if you're not going to sign. Okay, so those are some of the options. Now, I also want to say that let's look at any kind of legally binding contract. So if you were going to sign any legally binding contract, you're going to buy a car, you're going to buy a house, you're going to, any kind of contract, or you're going to hire someone, any legally binding contract, would you sign it if you didn't understand the terms of the contract, if you didn't read it in full, and if you didn't feel, that you were in full agreement of it? Would you sign it under pressure? Would you sign it without understanding it? Would you sign it if you didn't agree with it? Of course you wouldn't sign it if you didn't agree with it. Yeah, parents sign their IEP all the time when they're not in agreement with it because they feel coerced or rushed, or they're told misinformation. So I hope this helps you to know that you have options, that you have the right to take your IEP home and read it in the comfort of your own home with your partner, with your spouse, talk about it, and then bring it back when you feel comfortable and you're really in agreement and you have time to sign and utilize some of these other options. So I hope that helps you in preparing for your IEP if you have an upcoming IEP during IEP season. And I'm going to be posting more of these to help you prepare to have a successful IEP for your child. So I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, guys.